Tonight, tropical disturbance brings heavy rains and flash floods. Former Land Force commander pleads for suspended sentence. And inter-island vessels warned against overloading. Very good evening. We begin our bulletin today with the latest weather situation. A shallow tropical disturbance now lies over the southern part of the country and appears to be slowly moving southeastwards at 28 kilometers an hour. According to the Nandi Weather Office, while this is not expected to develop into a tropical cyclone over Fiji waters, it will, however, bring with it an associated active trough of low pressure. But this did result in a torrential downpour over the last 24 hours that resulted in flash floods in some areas such as Navua and Neitasiri, as well as Lautoka today. Apisalome Rambe with the story.
Paying the heavy price of a major downpour, even a nearby commercial business closed for the day. This family at Nangarimbuta settlement near Namelemeli in Navua found their house inundated with water when they returned this morning. We arrived there just as they were clearing their livestock and household belongings. The Waini Kavika River, a tributary of the main Navua River and which runs adjacent to the community, had burst its banks.
Rain started at around 5 p.m. yesterday. By around 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., water level gradually rose. I then told my wife to leave for friend's house. I waited all alone at home after they left until floodwaters entered our house. Then I left.
In nearby Tokotoko and the Lia settlement, flash flooding waters covered farming and residential blocks alike. And for these FNU students residing in this boarding house, it was a whole new experience.
Yesterday when we returned from work and it was raining heavily, but we didn't know that it would be a flash flood here. But we came, had our dinner and we were sleeping. At around 2:30 early in the morning, it was all flooded right around the house, but the water level didn't manage to get inside the house.
Up ahead with the Navua township, it was all quiet out front. But evidence of flash flooding was visible with the continuous rising level of the main Navua River. The last major floods that hit Navua was way back in 2004. 9 years later, the mighty Navua River is showing that it is still a force to reckon with. That's something businesses and residents here along the Navua Delta know all too well. Apisalome Rambo, Fiji One News.
Motorists are also advised to be cautious behind the wheel in the central, eastern and western divisions. These are just some of the major roads and bridges affected by rising waters and floods. In the central division, access into Neitasiri was affected mostly around the Nangali areas, from Waimbau to the Muaniweni flats. As a precautionary measure, authorities have sealed off some roads because of rising waters. In the western division, most roads affected are in the Rakiraki areas, as well as Singatoka and the Vaiwai stretch in Lautoka. Authorities say that they will continue to monitor water levels in these areas and issue advisories accordingly as the situation changes. A month into the November to April cyclone season, and the Red Cross is once again on the move, revamping its awareness programs and preparing its volunteers for the task ahead. Apisalome Rambo with the story.
Shifting, shelving and putting stocks together in place. Anticipating the disaster season ahead, these volunteers are back doing what they do best. Through their tireless efforts, the Fiji Red Cross has done a lot in terms of preparation and awareness programs, building up a resilient public by a shift in focus.
Most of the time people are creating awareness on community-based, but not actually focusing on what each family can do. Because sometimes they can all come in together, but when they go back to their different families, the information that is needed to be shared with other members of the family is not always there.
Recently, the Fiji Red Cross have adopted a multi-pronged approach to ensure they get through to the public they selflessly serve.
Our health program too is doing it, our safety program too is doing it, our youth program too is doing it, our international humanitarian law department, they are also doing disaster awareness.
In a profession that demands a great deal of volunteerism, long working hours and positive self-esteem, One has to ask, how do they really measure their work on the ground?
We have branches across Fiji who actually conduct assessments, and these are the people who gives us information about how well our relief items or the messages are being received in the communities.
The Fiji Red Cross is mandated by government as a stakeholder with DISMEC on disaster awareness and recovery campaigns. Happy Salome Rambo, Fiji One News.
The sentencing of former Land Force commander of the Republic of Fiji Military Forces, Pitan Riti, will now take place in the Suva High Court tomorrow afternoon. Today, his lawyer, Filimoni Vosarongo, filed his mitigation before Justice Paul Madigan asking for a suspended sentence for Riti.
It was mitigation time today for former RFMF Land Force Commander Pitan Riti. His lawyer, Filimoni Vosarongo, outlined Riti's colorful career in the military and his clean record so far. Vosarongo told the court that since 24th of October in 2010, Riti has been unemployed and could not find a job. This has left his wife to be the sole breadwinner for his family. Vosarongo added that Riti's loyalty was with the commander of the RFMF, which he clearly showed when he was asked to step down from his position and resign from the military. In his mitigation, Vosarongo asked the court to consider handing a sentence from a few months to 5 years or a suspended sentence for 3 years. Vosarongo also asked for a possible suspended sentence. Pitan Riti will now be sentenced in the Suva High Court tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. Ndrevu Kelangi, Fiji One News.
Police are searching for a man and his daughter from Nandi who have been missing since Sunday. 46-year-old Francis Deo and his 11-year-old daughter Samantha were last seen leaving for Nandi International Airport. The two went to drop off a third person at the airport in their black taxi, registration LT3253. They failed to return home. Police spokesperson Anane Soro confirmed that missing persons report was lodged by Deo's wife at the Nandi police station yesterday. Those with information can contact their nearest police station. All inter-island vessel operators have been warned not to overload this festive season. Considered one of the busiest periods of the year, all local inter-island shipping operators have also been reminded by the Works Ministry to strictly adhere to safety standards.
It's an age-old problem which has seen over 100 complaints over the past 5 years to our Consumer Council. The Council today issuing a stern warning to local operators to avoid overloading as a means of cashing in this busy festive period.
The shipping companies are selling the tickets, but they're not able to control the number of tickets they should be selling. So in many cases they oversell.
Kumar says overcrowding can lead to ships becoming unhygienic. Other complaints received by the council include the failure of companies to provide redress to their complaints, especially when it comes to delays or changes in ship scheduling times.
And the worst complaint we have received, and I thought it was a bit of a mind-boggling, is when the consumers were already on the boats and then on the way they were told, sorry, we're not going to that particular place, but we're going to drop you somewhere else, and then you have to find your own way.
The Ministry of Works, Transport and Public Utilities is also asking ship operators to abide by their coastal trading licenses and adhere to their ship's passenger capacity.
For ship owners to go beyond that, that's something that I'm sure that the Maritime Safety Authority enforcement officers on our jetties and on our wharves, we pay particular attention to during this festive season.
Commander Keane says while maritime officers are doing their part, the onus is on vessel operators to also play their part.
Just to encourage the ship owners, just to bear in mind the importance of many of our citizens that want to travel across to the islands, and also those from the islands back to Suva.
Pratish Raj, Fiji One News.
Staff and families of the Fiji High Commission in Canberra are already spreading the festive cheer. They spent their time with Canberra NGO Communities at Work, Care and Share volunteers to wrap Christmas gifts for the less fortunate. Acting Head of Mission Cheryl Brown Irawa says it was a joyous occasion where gifts were sorted into age groups and gender, then wrapped in preparation for delivery to local charities and people in need around the Canberra community. Irawa says this was their small way of giving something back to the community, which continues to be so nurturing of many Fijians. Around 200 gifts were wrapped on the day, which will see many children from underprivileged families receive high-quality Christmas presents this year. With the help of the Fiji High Commission, more gifts were also wrapped and prepared. And just a quick reminder, our weekly business show, Talk Business, will tonight take you on a rare insight into the lives of prison inmates at the Namboro Correctional Facility. Talk Business features the successful commercialization program initiated by the Corrections Services 4 years ago. From commercial agriculture, tailoring, carpentry to even baking, the show features how rehabilitation can offer inmates lifelong skills to help them enter the workforce or venture out on their own when they re-enter society. That's from 8 p.m. later tonight, right here on Fiji One. And the news ahead, celebrating World Human Rights Day. And Australian volunteers reflect on their contribution here. Hello again. Various NGOs took to the streets today to commemorate World Human Rights Day here in the capital. The overcast day did not dampen spirits today as activists braved a slight drizzle to get their message across.
It was a march through the capital to mark World Human Rights Day. Organized by the Fiji Women's Crisis Center, the march was also used as a platform to educate the public on the validity of having a say in all aspects of society. This year saw a lot of young advocates taking part, a good indication that young minds are aware of these issues they face and the rights associated with it.
Having to march and having to voice out certain things that we've all had strong opinions about was very liberating and reminded me of the great words of Martin Luther King, where he said, "There comes a time when silence is betrayal." And I'm very thankful that a lot of young people, a lot of women, and quite a number of people of Fiji came out and were not silent and did not betray their country because they voiced their opinion. They voiced on the matters and issues for which clearly for a long while has been ignored.
Today's celebration also coincided with the findings from yesterday's Fiji Women's Crisis Center survey report that indicated up to 72% of women in relationships here in the country have faced some form of abuse. For some, the march was a reminder that there are no barriers.
To remind people that they have the right to participate in sports or basically.
There is also the belief that even culture cannot be a barrier and that unity in numbers is needed. Since its inception, these marches have been able to open up dialogue.
We're engaging with the government of the day. We are engaging with them. We are making submissions, and and here and there we do see our submissions being taken into account.
This form of activism is surely a step forward in creating awareness in the country. As much awareness is surely needed. Ravaiva for all, Fiji One News.
As part of its activities this morning to commemorate World Human Rights Day, there was also a special exhibition for a global champion of human rights, the late Nelson Mandela himself. The display had quotes and a brief biography of the former freedom fighter, who was a symbol of his country's struggle against racial oppression and apartheid. Organizers of this morning's march say they also hope that the younger generation today can also appreciate the sacrifices that sometimes have to be made for peace and equality in any society.
He taught us a lot of things for what he has achieved in his life, and to the whole world. And with all he has done, we surely learn from him and working together in trying to give peace and harmony.
For our Fiji Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission, today was a low-key event. In a statement, the Commission says we should all be happy with the Bill of Rights and the 2013 Constitution, which guarantees specific provisions ranging from civil and political rights, as well as social and economic rights. Officer in charge at the Commission, Rajinesh Mishra, says they are now looking forward to the appointment of new commissioners as they slowly build up their ability to promote and protect the rights of all Fijians. The Commission marked the day by launching its 2014 calendar with a theme based on the 2013 Constitution's Bill of Rights, as well as bookmarker calendars on the rights of the child. Following the Reserve Bank-led Complaints Management Forum last week, work has also started on a key area of concern, and that is fees charged by lawyers. The forum had discussed the legal practitioners' rules of 2004, particularly legal fees charged by lawyers and whether the profession was following these rules. But one senior lawyer says this can become a complicated task.
We go by categories like conveyancing, Conveyancing consists of mortgage, transfers, even probates, company formation. For that there is a set scale, which is a public document under the Legal Practitioners Act.
Former High Court Judge Nazat Shamim says that while there are provisions in the Legal Practitioners Decree for the publicizing of legal fees and charges, it could be very difficult to have fixed fees for private matters such as divorce. That's because fees for such private cases are to be agreed on by the parties before services are provided.
The Legal Practitioners Decree has a section which creates a review committee for fees. So a review committee can be set up, but one hasn't been set up. So at the moment, fees are self-regulated. So lawyers decide for themselves how much they would charge. But there is a provision under the Legal Practitioners Decree that says that a committee can be set up to determine how much fees lawyers should charge.
The acting Australian head of mission to Fiji, Glenn Miles, hosted Australian volunteers and their organisations last night to celebrate their contributions towards the country. For the past 1.5 years, 80 Australian volunteers were on assignment in Fiji, working on various projects focusing on education, health and community resilience and economic opportunities. This year's theme was to advocate wellness, reflecting the move towards ensuring physical, mental, spiritual, social, occupational and environmental well-being in Fiji.
And I could see the positive contributions that volunteers made to communities, to organisations and to individuals. My experiences since then have only reaffirmed in my belief in the life-changing contributions that are being made by about the 50 or so volunteers here at any given time. From an Australian government perspective, your contributions to boost Australia's profile in Fiji are incredibly positive.
The event also featured volunteer presentations and photo exhibitions highlighting their experiences and challenges while volunteering in Fiji. International Volunteers Day 2013 was celebrated in Fiji on the 5th of December with a health walk along the Nasiese foreshore.
I've regained an appreciation for the importance of family and friends and life outside of work from learnings of the Fijian culture. And also what I appreciate most is creativity. Being surrounded by so much colour and resourcefulness, it's hard not to be inspired.
The Fiji Police Force launched its festive season operations, today known as Operation Singanisulu. Chief Operations Officer ACP Rusiati Tundrabu says it is aimed at ensuring all citizens and visitors here enjoy a peaceful and safe festive period. Areas deemed to be hotspots will now receive more focus during the course of the operation.
Also in some of the areas that we have identified where criminal activities have been prone on some of the areas, and also along on main highways, picnic spots, and also nightclubs and other outlets, amusement outlets. Those are some of the areas that we will be concentrating into, and other divisions and some of the housing areas and identified areas that from all the years that we have identified causing us a lot of illegal activities.
Tundrabu has also directed that non-essential leave be deferred. This is especially for personnel based at the police headquarters to ensure more police visibility during the festive period.
Yes, I've directed that those that the divisional police commanders, just to have the initiative on the ground. We should have we have identified number of personnel to be on the ground at in all areas, in all the divisions. So should there be any need for the divisional police commanders to call in those that are on leave? It's their own discussion. But for us up at headquarters, we have advised them that we need full operational personnel on the ground during this period.
Stay with us, we have regional news coming up. Papua New Guinea's Treasurer Don Polye launched the National Financial Inclusion and Financial Literacy Strategy 2014 to 2015. Treasurer Don Pollier was recently elected as chairman of Board of Governors of the IMF and the World Bank. Financial inclusion in PNG has received active support from the national government, resulting in a diverse range of service providers, financial products and delivery channels. Together, the 5 mobile money providers claim over 360,000 registered users since the opening of the mobile money market in 2011. Growing at an annual rate of 202% since 2008, the number of financial services agents now surpasses bank branches in the country. PNG's unbanked segment currently stands at 85.62% of the total population. The Pacific Network on Globalization, or PANG, says the recent World Trade Organization agreement does little for its Pacific members. The agreement was signed off by 159 nations in Bali on Saturday and simplifies trade procedures while reducing export barriers. But according to PANG campaigner Adam Wolfenden, the so-called Trade Facilitation Agreement will see rich countries and their corporations benefit from having their goods move through Pacific borders more quickly. This, he adds, does not necessarily mean an increase in Pacific exports. Wolfenden says the agreement means the Pacific will now be diverted precious government revenues into facilitating more imports. And remember, you can also view the Fiji One News Bulletin on our website. That's www.fijione.tv. You can also watch previous news bulletins as well as our current affairs, business and sports shows. Drew is next with sports and overseas coaches galore for 2014.
That's right, Vili. The National Sports Commission has revealed the list of federations who've applied for the $2 million grant. That's coming up. And also ahead, Fiji Rugby Centennial Jersey, part of $1 million fundraiser. And powerlifters back home with more gold medals.